and welcome to IMA's Inside Talk Career Connection webinar series. The title of today's presentation is A New Era, Top Finance and Accounting Hiring Trends. I'm Margaret Lockery, and I'll be your host for today's Career Connection webinar. It's a pleasure to have Terry Mormile as part of our program, and she will be serving as moderator for today's event. Terry is the Director of International Education and Career Services in the Education and Career Services area at IMA. In this position, she has responsibility for international education strategy and leads a variety of new product and career-related initiatives, ensuring innovative and relevant professional learning solutions are offered. She's part of a team responsible for IMA's continuing education product line in alignment with IMA's broader mission to provide educational value and knowledge to the members worldwide. Hi, Terry. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Margaret. I'm pleased to be a part of IMA's Career Connection webinar series, and on behalf of IMA, I want to welcome everyone to today's session. We hope you find these webinars helpful as you navigate a changing hiring landscape and look to advance your career. At this time, I would like to introduce our featured presenter for today's program. With us today, we have Gene Kim. Gene Kim is a Senior Vice President with Robert Half, the world's first and largest specialized talent solutions firm. In his role, Gene manages the company's finance and accounting permanent placement practice teams in the East Bay market of the San Francisco Bay Area. Gene joined Robert Half in 2003 and has won multiple awards for his work. During his time with the company, he has placed hundreds of accounting and finance professionals in full-time roles at companies of all sizes. Prior to joining Robert Half, Gene worked in consulting for a public accounting firm and as a senior financial analyst at a large technology company. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics from University of California at Berkeley. Please join me in welcoming Gene Kim.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here and share about this important topic with you today. Back to you.
Before turning the presentation over to Gene, I would like to go over the learning objectives for today's program. After participating in this webinar, you will recognize national hiring trends and how that impacts job seekers. You should also be able to explain where salaries are headed and learn how to negotiate compensation. And finally, you will be able to discuss the latest trends in benefits and perks and diversity, equity, inclusion efforts as organizations begin to make plans and move ahead. We're looking forward to an informative presentation, so at this time, I'll turn it back over to Gene to begin.
Okay, thank you. Hello again. I first of all want to thank Robert Half and the IMA for the opportunity to speak at this event. Thank you all for your time today. And I hope that you will find this presentation informative as an active or potential job seeker. As you can see from the agenda, a pretty straightforward presentation. First off, I'll be talking about national hiring and compensation trends. I understand that the audience is made up of IMA members around the world, not just the United States, so I want to acknowledge those who are not in the United States. I do hope that you find some of my insights applicable to your local country. Second, I'll be talking about trends in finance and accounting. I'm very confident about this discussion topic since I've spent the past 18 years doing only direct hire finance and accounting placement. I love this work, and that's why after all these years, I just don't supervise recruiters, but I am directly involved with placing candidates with clients, and hopefully with that direct experience, I'll be able to share recent and applicable insights and experiences into market trends. And keep in mind, though, I do work in the Bay Area market, so I will give you specifics on my local area, which may or may not apply to your local job market. And lastly, I'll be talking about DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am a very active participant in Robert Half's DEI initiatives, so I look forward to sharing more about this topic. And as mentioned prior, please ask your questions. I will try to leave enough time at the end to be able to answer them. And at this point, let's get started with a poll question.
Okay, thank you. Attendees should see the first polling question now open on your screen. If you cannot see the question, please refresh your browser, which should correct the issue. I'd like to remind everyone that you may begin responding to each question as soon as it appears on your screen. Our first polling question today is, what do you want to focus on for 2022? A, embracing new technologies. B, enhancing soft skills. C, enhancing technical skills. D, moving into a leadership role. E, something else. There's no right answer, no right or wrong answer. We just want to see what you're going to be focused on in the next year. Please note that after selecting your answer, you must click the Submit button, which is located on the right side of your screen just below the response options in order for us to record your answer. So I'll turn it back over to Jean to give us a little insight.
Okay, that's great. And as you guys are submitting your poll questions, and thank you for doing it up to this point, it's really interesting because A and C are somewhat similar. They're more hard skills, and B and D are more soft skills. So be curious to find out what the audience is focused on. So let's go ahead and look at the results. Okay. And interestingly enough, the hard skills win out, right? Embracing new technologies is number one. And then C, enhancing technical skills is number two. And when I read technical skills, I don't mean technical meaning technology. I think of technical skills as more accounting technical, SEC reporting, revenue recognition, things like that. It could apply to technology, though I think that more applies to A. But very interesting, and hopefully, when I present, it may shift how you focus on shift your focus for 2022. Okay, let's keep on going with the presentation then. Okay, so national hiring and compensation trends. Let's start with a look at what the trends are here in the United States and how those trends affect job seekers. And again, for our international audience, I hope you'll be able to find some commonalities. Robert Half has been tracking salaries since 1950 and publishing salary forecasts, first on paper and then augmented with PDFs. Countless employers and employees rely on our projections and insights on employment records to plan hiring budgets, write job descriptions, create compensation packages, retain employees, and more. For this next year, for 2022, we are keeping up with trends and going completely online. You can quickly find employment trends and salary figures for all specialties, including numbers customized or salaries customized to your market using one interactive guide. Go to roberthalf.com to find it. As I understand, there's going to be a post-presentation or an email that'll come out after this presentation where you will be able to get that salary guide information. And there are guides for other countries. So that's great. The starting salaries for each position are based on actual placements in our offices throughout the United States. Also included in the analysis would be demand for each position, supply of talent, and other market conditions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Next slide. Okay, this is a very interesting bit of information. Despite worries over COVID-19 variants and vaccination rates, confidence is high in business and the employment market. We read about it in the news. Companies are ramping up operations and restarting projects after hitting pause last year. They're eager to grow and need more people to handle increasing workloads. And if you read about the news and think about the challenges we're facing, we are what we call in a V recovery, right? We dropped down very quickly in 2020, and we are spiking back up with supply shortages, inflation, things like that. And so overall, hiring is near or even exceeding pre-pandemic levels in many markets. According to our research, 51% of companies in the United States are expanding their hiring of full-time employees. Well, is this good? It's definitely great, because if you think about it, about half of the companies in the market are not just replacing staff, but they're adding staff. It's a huge number. For example, I have a client, they're in kind of a market, it's a direct mail marketing business, or junk mail, and I placed 4 in their accounting team in the past year, essentially doubling their accounting staff. 2 of the positions are newly created due to growth in the company, and 2 are replacement positions. The CEO admitted how hard it is to find talent on his own, especially for companies that aren't high-profile companies, like a direct mail marketing company. It is so difficult for them to find talent. The client was posting ads, couldn't find qualified staff, and struggling with recovery problems, right? Delays in receiving new equipment, challenges with hiring, and ironically, the thing that keeps them up at night, it's not hiring or receiving new equipment. It's actually whether or not the company has enough inventory of paper to print the mail for all the demand that their customers have. And prices are skyrocketing for paper, and supplies are dwindling. All right, let's go to our next slide. Okay, workers have leverage. They sure do. The hot hiring market is increasing competition for top talent. Skilled finance and accounting candidates are receiving multiple offers, just like they were before the pandemic. And because of this, there's a direct impact on compensation packages. Many employers are increasing salaries and adding perks and incentives to land choice candidates. To retain top talent, companies are reinstating raises and improving benefits and other perks. So how are employers attracting and retaining workers based on these stats? Well, I could tell you, it's interesting. Those numbers are very high, 48, 46, 43, and 40. I have a number of clients personally that are using all 4 strategies to hire and retain. And I think in the Bay Area market, where it's so challenging to find top talent, it's essential. All those areas are key. And honestly, employers that don't enhance their compensation strategies are at risk of losing top performers. It says in there in that stat, I like to look at 66% on the right-hand side. 66% of workers are confident they could find a job quickly. It makes sense, because we're hearing about and we're seeing so many quit without a job. 2/3 of workers have such a confidence that they are looking at their job differently. It's not, I have to work here. It's, do I want to work here since I don't need to work here? That's what the 2/3 of workers think. For example, I just interviewed a controller. She was laid off from her job in September of 2020 as her position was moved to the UK. Of course, this is a Bay Area candidate. I asked her what she has been doing since. And I thought maybe she was doing some contract work, side jobs, volunteering, maybe passively looking for work. But no, that wasn't none of those answers. She said, I spend most of my time since September of 2020 meditating, spending time with her daughter, and enjoying life. And now she's ready to start looking for work. It's amazing. Over a year later, she starts looking. She really epitomizes the candidate-driven market. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, the ability to work remotely, it's really, it's become a must for many in the marketplace or in the workforce. A survey found 75% of office professionals want to work remotely at least part of the time, and 25% won't join or stay with a company that won't allow this arrangement. Some of the benefits are pretty obvious of a remote work arrangement. You know, it's an excellent way to increase employee morale and performance. It also gives organizations an edge in hiring and retention. In fact, 2/3 of managers say that their company plan on offering flexible schedules even after restrictions are lifted. So, you know, the impact of remote work and COVID, it's going to be long lasting. Another thing is that remote work also allows companies to recruit people from essentially everywhere or anywhere, and basically deepens the candidate pool. In fact, 78% of managers we surveyed said that they are open to recruiting from outside of their geographic area. So let me give you a couple things I'm seeing when it comes to remote work personally. Clients that are not in the tech or biotech area, let me take a step back. In the Bay Area workforce, the two hottest industries are tech and biotech. And we have a number of clients not in that space who want the A candidate. And typically the A candidate wants to work in the tech or biotech space. So how does this client find that A candidate in the Bay Area? Well, what they're doing is seeking 100% remote candidates. For example, my company, Robert Half, headquartered in the Bay Area, we're not tech or biotech. We're able to get top tier, Big Four, CPA, high potential candidates by hiring 100% remote out of the area. Another story on the candidate side, little tip to be able to make yourself more marketable is, with this information, be open to working in the office. If you want to make yourself more marketable, don't just ask or demand hybrid work or 100% remote work. Be open to working in an office. That may open up, or that will open up more opportunities your way. And then maybe in the future, negotiate the flexible work schedule after you land the job. Quick tip. Let's go to the next slide. All right, candidates have negotiation power. That's for sure. You know, the salary-related trends definitely favor candidates. Robert Half research shows that salaries for professional occupations are expected to increase by an average of 3.8%. I would say, though, for finance and accounting candidates with in-demand skills, it's significantly higher. I would say as high as 10%, believe it or not. So if you're looking for a new position and receive a job offer, it might be important to brush up on your negotiation skills. Let's go to the next slide. And with that, let's go to our next poll question. Terry?
Thank you, Gene. Attendees should see the second polling question now open on your screen. If you cannot see the question, please refresh your browser, which should correct the issue. Our second polling question is, how comfortable are you with negotiating your salary? A, comfortable, very comfortable. B, somewhat comfortable. C, not comfortable at all. Please be sure to click the Submit button, which is located on the right side of the screen, just below the response options. And also, I would like to just remind people to submit your questions. We're getting some great questions in, but just as you go along, continue to submit them. Now I'll turn it back over to Gene.
All right. Thanks, Terry. Yeah, interesting poll question. I would say most people, but definitely most people in my experience who have a finance and accounting background, they're not comfortable negotiating their own salary. But I do think that the being able to talk about your salary, negotiate it, is going to be important, or at least have someone help you negotiate your salary. So curious to find out what the answer is. And here we are. Somewhat comfortable. That's what I would guess that people would say. I think a surprising thing is that so few people are very comfortable. And if anything, more people are not at all comfortable. So I think it's a good topic to talk about salary negotiation. Okay. When it comes to negotiating, can be tricky, even awkward. We have a few tips for you. First of all, of course, do your research. Use the Robert Half salary guide. I'm going to say that. Other credible sources to benchmark what you should expect reasonably. Another thing is, don't expect to get a higher salary just because you asked. You'll be more successful if you explain why you feel you deserve more. Highlight your strengths. Show how you added revenue or cut costs in your previous job. Third thing, don't exaggerate, or complete honesty is important when negotiating your salary. There's no better way to see your offer withdrawn than having a hiring manager find out you invented a competing job offer or inflated your salaries from past jobs. Now, I do have to say some states, including California, make it illegal for an interviewer to ask how much someone is asking. However, what I would like to say is, if it's to your advantage, you should definitely disclose how much you are or were making. Honesty doesn't mean full disclosure, though. For example, I placed a director of finance with a consumer packaged goods company, and he had a base salary higher than the typical base salary than one would expect with his current company or his previous company, because the company's bonus plan was below average in terms of payout, meaning the company paid a higher base salary than market, but a lower bonus than market. Well, when it came to the negotiation times, I didn't talk about his total compensation. I talked about the candidate's base salary and how this other company that was making him an offer needed to offer a competitive base salary, fully knowing that the bonus package, there's an equity piece, the benefits were better at this new company. And with that, the offer came out very strong. Client was excited to make that great offer. And of course, the candidate was ecstatic to be able to get a relatively significant over total compensation bump. All right, fourth thing, a reasonable employer won't withdraw an offer just because you tried to negotiate, but dragging out the salary negotiation can frustrate the hiring manager and start your relationship on a sour note. What I'd say to that is, don't change your expectations just to squeeze a little bit more money. It's not worth it. You want to start with this new company with a great working relationship. Let's go to the next slide. All right. And other negotiation tips, definitely got to keep a positive tone. In fact, that might be my number one. It will make you more effective as you navigate through these conversations and discussions. And I can tell you this, a negative tone will come across like you don't want the job or you're reluctant about taking the job. So I would definitely, no matter what, be positive in your negotiations. Negativity it will not go well. So positive tone. Another thing is, considering perks and benefits, the reality is that employers may not have the budget, or the salary that you're looking for is outside of their hiring range, or the employer needs to keep in mind the current staff and offer a salary that is competitive within the department. So they may not be able to provide that salary that you're looking for, but might be able to add value by benefits and other perks. Could be less costly than a bump in salary for the employer, to give extra vacation days, flexible hours, maybe work from home schedule. Other things to think about, a sign-on bonus, a 3 or 6 month salary review, extra equity, maybe extra annual bonus potential. There's a lot of other things to consider. Third thing, be confident in your abilities and the value you can add to the company. And I would say this, be confident but not arrogant. And even if you have, or if you're in the fortunate situation to have multiple offers, always be gracious, not arrogant. Last thing, practice. It's a good idea to ask a friend, a mentor, a business partner to practice with you the conversation you're likely to have with the hiring manager or the HR person. The ideal partner is someone from the corporate world, someone business savvy, who can coach you on projecting confidence and answering those unexpected questions. Of course, I want to slide in a little tip. You know, if you have a great recruiter helping you who's placing you, they can obviously help you through the negotiation and resignation process. So, next slide. All right. This is again referring to Robert Half's salary guide. It is a great resource. Starting salaries in finance and accounting are not one size fits all. That's why we separate the salaries in percentiles based on factors such as candidate's work history, expertise, skills, education, certification, maybe how in demand a particular role may be. And there's a couple examples here on the slide. Senior accountant or financial analyst. By the way, these numbers are the national average. So these salaries would be lower in places like Montana or Kansas, higher in places like New York or in the Bay Area. This 25 percentile basically means, you know, this candidate would be light on experience or light on technical skills or communication skills, education, certification, industry, company size, right? If they're light in any of those areas, that's 25th. 50th is midpoint, just average with all those areas. Average experience, average technical skills, communication, et cetera, all the way up to the 75th percentile. The high potential candidates, the excellent candidates, above average experience, maybe could be larger company, more specialized company, high demand company. So of course, in the Bay Area, we'll be talking about industry. So tech and biotech, they're in the 75th percentile or even higher for the Bay Area. All right, let's take a look at some trends specific to finance and accounting. Okay, so here are the national trends that we're seeing. Hottest industries, financial services, government, healthcare, insurance, technology. I'll talk about the Bay Area, what I'm seeing. For us, technology, number one. SaaS, or software as a service, the hottest space within technology. So, you know, maybe Airbnb, Twitter, Netflix. I mean, you just go down the list. They're all SaaS companies, and it's pretty crazy. And then on top of that, there's traditional software companies like Oracle, e-commerce companies, or e-tailers, the ones who sell products over the internet. There's consumer tech, consumer electronics. For example, Apple has a portion of its business that is consumer tech. We have semiconductors, telecommunications. So tech in the Bay Area, it's huge, and there's subsets of tech within the Bay Area. Number two industry for the Bay Area would be related to healthcare, but I would call it life sciences, specifically the biotech industry. Everything with, I feel like with COVID and all that's happening with Pfizer and Moderna and J&J, I think it's led to more investment as a whole in the biotech space. And so biotech is booming in our area. And number three for us would be similar to the national trend, which is financial services. And financial services, it's not just limited to banks, but that includes private equity firms, broker dealers, wealth management firms, REITs. What I'd like to say is based on the market, and you read about how there are the uber wealthy getting wealthier. Well, they've got to figure out a way to handle their money. And so I think these financial services firms like PE firms and broker dealers and wealth management firms, those guys are taking advantage of the wealthier, taking care of the wealthier's money. Another area that's interesting related to technology, there's things like food tech, like Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. There's fintech, which is a combination of financial services and technology, the Robin Hoods of the world. And then the last, or two other hot areas that I want to bring up, construction is big. I do think that with additional government spend, I do foresee construction spend still being pretty high. Nonprofit also doing quite well as well. So those are the hot industries. In terms of the hot, we call functional roles or job roles, I do agree with those. I do want to point out the hottest spaces that I'm seeing personally are senior accountant, staff accountant, accounting manager, controller. So that whole accounting, the accounting career path is big. In terms of accounting operations or transactional processing work, payroll number one by far, AP number two, and then we do have a pretty strong need for senior financial analysts. Tough to find a good senior financial analyst nowadays. And with that, all these salaries in these areas have gone up a considerable amount over the past couple of years. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, skills in demand and attributes. So let's take a look at this list. What is these lists really haven't changed that much over the last few years. But I do want to point out maybe areas that I'd like to emphasize because I think some of these items are more important. I do think that being adept with systems and latest technology, based on the first poll question, it is very important. I would want to kind of point out things like cloud-based systems, complex ERP systems. That's key. I think, a question to ask yourself is, can you as an accounting leader streamline accounting processes with the complex systems and tools that are in the market? Because that's what we're seeing. Same thing goes with data analysis and reporting tools, right? Like Power BI, Tableau, things like that. There's so many tools out there, but can you as an accounting leader utilize those tools to be able to truly streamline processes and ultimately reduce the number of heads that are required to run an accounting department? And the reality is that many companies are trying to fully integrate, fully automate, but advanced Excel skills are still also needed with many accounting jobs because it's very difficult to get to that full automation and integration piece. So still Excel, really an important skill set to have. Of course, the standard pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, indexing, things like that, to be able to utilize data and cut and slice data. Ironically, on the list, QuickBooks. QuickBooks has improved over the years. It's a powerful software for small businesses, and a lot of small businesses are hiring, and a lot of small businesses use QuickBooks. So QuickBooks experience is very helpful, though for those of you who have used QuickBooks, you know that it has its limitations and inherent problems. Industry experience, I want to point that out. Why are companies so focused on industry experience? Because accounting is accounting. Well, I would say that their companies are typically running so lean that there's very little time to train or learn on the job with most companies. And they're running so short-staffed, they would rather pay extra to be able to find the talent that knows the industry, so there's not that learning curve, than having to train that person to be able to learn the industry. So industry experience is very important. Certifications, the CPA, the CMA, of course the CPA is the premier certification, but the CMA provides the extra learning and depth to help one grow in their career, to take that step up from that staff senior accountant all the way to accounting manager or controller, with the different learnings that you get through the CMA, through CMA testing and learning. Attributes, I want to talk about the right-hand column. Increased automation, has made, the increased automation on the left has increased the need for more problem solvers and critical thinkers. And so that's why it's an important attribute. It talks about in there adaptability, change management, communication, teamwork, collaboration. I think all those areas, that's an increased need as well, especially when it comes to more remote work, the dynamic hiring environment, and dynamic market conditions. So there you go with that. Let's go to the next slide. So fast tracking digital transformation. This is related to the last slide. Technology and skills gaps are top concerns for finance and accounting professionals or leaders. Digital transformation has been a business trend for the past few decades, but now it's on the fast track due to COVID, remote work, things like that. 52% of the CFOs we surveyed said they're prioritizing digital transformation initiatives. Companies are using cloud systems, automation, artificial intelligence to optimize financial reporting and other processes. These tools offer greater efficiency, deeper insights, and access to company resources for remote employees. And ultimately, companies have to do this to be able to stay competitive. And as a result, these companies need finance and accounting professionals with strong technology skills. And with that, about 3/4 of CFOs plan on increasing their budget for professional development and training in these digital transformation areas. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so focus on leadership skills that are most important now. As you envision roles of greater responsibility, you will need to develop leadership skills. And there are traditional leadership skills like integrity, fairness, decisiveness, strategic thinking. I think with the current environment, it's requiring leaders to offer their team emotional support. And even though you look at these points, it makes managers almost sound like therapists. But the reality is that we're facing what we hear is the great resignation, which is why, if you think about it, what is the main reason why someone quits their job? Well, it's their boss, right? And so we leaders need to be able to pivot in terms of how they lead their teams. Empathy is a very important quality for a leader nowadays to be able to manage staff who are having a hard time dealing with new frustrations and new stresses. And I experienced that myself. I managed a team of about, 10 recruiters, and empathy is key. And the key is being able to work with, not being afraid to open up and be a business partner in helping them achieve their work-life balance. The flip side of being able to work remote is that there are some people who are working 24/7. And it's really hard for me as a leader to be able to find that balance between developing a high performance team and yet a work-life balance environment. And I think one thing that I've learned is that I encourage my team to take time off, go on vacation, take your vacation, or maybe not go on vacation because they can't really go anywhere, do a staycation and make sure you unplug. Let's go to the next slide, which is the next poll question. Carrie.
Okay, thank you. Attendees may respond to the question immediately as I read through the question. Our third polling question is, what would be the most critical benefit an employer can offer? A, job role, B, work-life balance, C, compensation, D, health benefits, E, something else or some other type of benefit. Please take a moment to submit your answer, then click the submit button on the right side just below the response options. I just want to say we're getting some great questions in, Gene, so I hope you're ready. I'll turn it back over to you.
No pressure. Okay, well, I'll try to rush through this as quickly as possible. So I think this is a really tough poll question because my answer to this would be, how about all of the above? But we'll see what you guys all have to say here. And let's go ahead and see what the results are. Work-life balance. Very interesting. Very interesting. And you know, the irony about work-life balance means that an employer needs to overhire in their minds. And again, it leads to this hiring trend of a demand for more employees, more staff, more hiring. So very interesting, 60%. All right. Well, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Trends and benefits. I think to remain competitive, it's not offering health insurance nowadays that makes benefits strong. It's how good is the health insurance? What are the options? What is the premium amount monthly? Do you offer an HSA or an FSA? You know, paid time off. You know, what we're seeing nowadays is what we call unlimited paid time off, which is a double-edged sword, as if you happen to have unlimited paid time off, which basically means you don't have any, you can take as much vacation as you want or time off as you want as long as you get your job done. And like I said, double-edged sword. Just checked with one of my clients and their benefits because they're really trying to stay competitive. You know, this company starts employees off with 20 days PTO, 10 paid holidays, 6% 401k match, and HMO, PPO, or PPO option with up to $2,000 HSA contribution by their employer. So benefits are getting better to remain competitive. Go to the next slide. Okay, trends and perks. Again, it's all about staying competitive, right? So 88% of HR managers said their company has added new perks and benefits as a result of the pandemic. You look at all these up here, there's wellness programs, mental health resources, stipends for home office equipment, additional paid family leave, child care assistance, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right, last thing. I wanted to spend more time on DEI, but let's go to our next slide. DEI is not new to Robert Half. Back in the 60s, Bob Half, founder of Robert Half, testified before Congress speaking against discriminatory practices in hiring that were common at the time. And today, Robert Half continues our commitment to advancing DEI across our company, standing together against racial injustices, and supporting and giving back to communities where we live and work. We do have partnerships with organizations like NABA and AFWA, for example. And for me, I'm proud to be one of the founding members of APEX, which stands for Asian Professionals for Excellence. APEX is Robert Half's ERG, or Employee Resource Group for Pan-Asians and our allies. Robert Half, we're committed to developing successful relationships with minority, women, veteran, and disabled veteran-owned businesses through our supplier inclusion programs to meet the needs of our customers. And nationwide, more organizations are integrating DEI into their policies, hiring practices, and corporate culture. Let's go to the next slide. So what's the big deal about DEI? Top business reasons for DEI. DEI is not just doing the right thing. Research has shown that more diverse and inclusive teams are better at problem solving, decision making, and innovation. You could do the research yourself. Harvard Business Review, McKinsey, other prominent sources all talk about diversity. Companies that have better DEI scores will have better innovation, problem solving, and decision making. Also important, though, with recruiting and retention. 71% of workers said they'd leave a company whose values don't align with their own. And fortunately, 93% of workers feel at least somewhat satisfied with their company's DEI efforts. When I think about the DEI, being a part of Apex, it's provided me an opportunity to help change the fabric and culture of my company for the better. And it's also given me the opportunity to give back to the company and employees. Also given me a deeper appreciation for my own culture and differences among Asians and other groups. And just for you to know, Apex is in its first year, and we're about to celebrate our 1-year anniversary next month. And already we've raised about $30,000 for charitable causes. 2 causes. One was awareness in reducing hate crimes against Asians and feeding underprivileged families in the Bay Area. So DEI does make an impact. Let's go to the next slide, which is a poll question.
Okay, thank you, Jim. That's great to hear about your organization. Please, excuse me. If you cannot see the question, please refresh your browser. The 4th and final polling question for today is, how involved are you in diversity, equity, and inclusion at your organization? A, heavily involved. B, somewhat involved. C, not involved. Don't forget to click the submit button, which is located on the right screen just below the response options. Also want to just mention that, IMA has some courses coming out related to DE&I and some research that was published recently and some more other research that will be coming out. So our members can look forward to additional content and thought leadership in the DE&I area. I'll turn it back over to Jean now.
Oh, good stuff there, Terry. Good to know. Yeah, DEI is a big deal. If you read anything about top companies to work for or Forbes or any of these like major sources, they do talk about DEI often because it's talked about in boardrooms because it's a big deal. And do want to point out to answer the question if it's how involved are you or how involved do you want to be? So I guess that would be a kind of a sub question there. How involved do you want to be at your organization? All right, well, let's go to the poll results, please. Okay, somewhat involved. All right, well, want to encourage you to really speak up and make DEI part of your organization, if at all possible. And that's it for my presentation. Back to you, Terry.
Okay, that's been great, Jean. You've shared a lot of great information. Hopefully our members find it very useful to them. Attendees should see the evaluation survey now open on the screen. If it did not open, please click the evaluation survey icon on the bottom of the screen for access. We appreciate your feedback, so please complete the survey while we address some of the audience questions. The audience has been fantastic today. We have lots of questions. I'm going to try to look for the themes in many of the questions, and I've seen quite a few related to skills. So what types of skills are important? So, what skills have evolved as a result of the pandemic? How is this different from the skills companies were looking for about a year ago versus today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think that soft skills are important because there's a lot more communication remote, right? And so being able to communicate effectively, being able to have those, talks about your empathy. I think that's a big thing nowadays, especially with the hiring environment. Speaking as a leader, if you're a manager, being able to develop skills that will retain and motivate staff, big deal. I do also think too, on another hand, technology skills are even more important because with more remote learning or remote working, with the competitive environment, there is a requirement or a greater need for accountants to have those technology skills. When I mean technology skills, the ability to navigate around, work with technology, work with the ERP system. I mean, cloud-based systems are just going to be more and more prevalent, like the NetSuites of the world. And there's a lot of tools out there. I don't think necessarily a specific tool is going to be key. If anything, Excel is going to be still really important to have. But outside of that, as long as you have good skill with an ERP or a more complex system, that's going to be fine. The ability to understand cloud-based systems versus the traditional ERP systems, I think that'll be fine. But yeah, it's changed, meaning we all have to get better at what we do, both on a soft skill and hard skill space. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Gene. I just want to remind the audience that members, we have several courses on Excel. We also have a free Excel Tips in 10. Those are nano courses. It's free as part of your membership, and tap into that for little tips and tricks. And we have Excel courses on predictive analytics. And so, look at what we have in our course catalog. We also have a data analytics and visualization fundamental certificate. We have some other courses, and there's stuff being developed as we speak. So be on the lookout for new products coming out. You can always also go to our website under the Education Center. There's a page called Technology and Analytics Center, and that center is everything related to technology and analytics coming from IMA. It has thought leadership. It has recorded webinars. It has articles from Strategic Finance Magazine, as well as our courseware, podcasts. So everything in one place on that Tech and Analytics Center that you'll find on our website. And Gene, you have something to say?
Yeah, real quick, Terry. No, I appreciate that. It reminded me of something. I was just talking to a candidate earlier this week, and he told me that he was a finalist with a company, and one question they asked him was, okay, so tell me the last time you did a VLOOKUP. And the answer was, what's that? He didn't get the joke. So just remember, it is really, Excel skills are really key. And this is a pretty, I would say it's a, $250 million company. So it's not a real small company, and those Excel skills are key. So learn it.
It is amazing that as long as we've heard that Excel is going to go away, it hasn't gone away, and it remains to be a fundamental skill that our accounting and finance professionals need to have no matter what. No matter how automated we get, there's always stuff you're going to throw back into Excel. So it is very important, right? Before I ask the next question, I just want to respond to something I'm seeing a couple of times. The Robert Half survey information will be sent to you as part of the thank you email. So I know Gene just touched on a couple of things in this presentation. Obviously couldn't go through, but there are quite a few questions about that. But you'll get the links to those surveys in the thank you email. So. Now, because we have an international audience, this next question is very interesting. And it says, what about people who are living outside of the U.S. who would like to work for a U.S. company but work remotely and remain in their home country? And, the question here is, do they work with the local Robert Half office? Any recommendations you have in that way?
Well, I am not an expert with this space, but I understand that there are tax implications with that, and companies would need to incur those tax implications. So that would be an issue. That's how I understand it. Don't quote me on that. And I did talk the other day with someone out of the Netherlands who wanted to make a move to the United States and potentially work in the United States. The hard part is that, one, there are work visa issues. So even though if you work for a U.S. employer, your better bet is to work for a U.S.-based company, but the actual company is operating and functioning out of your local country, right, out of your local area. right? But it will be hard to be able to find work. You know, if I'm a San Francisco company looking to hire somebody, and then you hire someone out of another area or another country, I don't see that happening now. And companies still really like to have someone, you know, at least somewhat close by. Our 100% remote clients, they are looking at, they oftentimes go by state, because there's some tax implications if they hire an employee who happens to live in a state that they don't have any employees yet living in. So hopefully that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it's a very complicated issue. Thank you. So this is a quick one, hopefully, or maybe not, but is the old adage that you should keep your resume to one page still valid? Or, you know, I know we're asking people to have all sorts of skills, and when you start listing all those skills and several jobs, you know, is it still a one-pager world, or should we be looking beyond one pages?
From my experience, I still like the, you know, 10 years of experience is one page, 20 years of experience is 2 pages, 30 years of experience is 3 pages. I do like that. I don't like more than 3 pages in terms of a resume. 1 page is great. I like a 1-page resume. If you are a consultant, I love the 1-page resume. Meaning if you want to talk about only your skills and not necessarily your chronological work history, 1-page resume is fine, and I prefer that. But if you are you have a chronological resume where you talk about your work experience and your most recent work experiences up at the top of your resume, I would go anywhere from 1 to 3 pages based on your years of experience.
Okay, great. There's a few questions coming in about age, people who are more seasoned professionals, and what do you see right now happening in the landscape for more seasoned professionals? Obviously, you know, everyone's looking to hire that entry level or young professional with a couple of years, tech savvy, et cetera. But what advice or guidance could you give to the more seasoned professional?
There's so many things I think about that. So one of the trends that I'm seeing is the reason why there's so much, this is kind of a related point, one of the reasons why we're seeing so much demand for talent is because the stock market is doing well. I think our baby boomers, we'll call that, their stock portfolios are increasing, and they're saying, you know what, now's the time to retire. And so they are the CFOs and controllers at these companies, and now we're having to backfill a lot of those positions. I think if you're more seasoned, I think the best thing you can do is make sure that you are up to date technologically and that your soft skills are on point, or you're developing those as well. Same thing applies, meaning you're able to communicate well, you're able to connect with people, you're able to connect potentially with a different generation staff, you are technologically on par with those maybe who are younger. That will be very helpful as you interview or look for work. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. We're running a little late. One last question. Sure. Any salary negotiation tips for someone who's already on the job, not someone looking for a new job? Oh,
so what I'm hearing from that, Terry, is I'm working a job right now. I don't want to have to find a new job to be able to get a salary increase at my current job. And here's what I would say about that. Don't interview for a job to be able to get a better offer at your current job. It's the worst thing you could do. Meaning, let me go ahead and find a job offer. I'm making $90,000. I'm going to go to another company, get an offer for $100,000, and then I'll go back to my current employer, tell them you need to match my pay. Don't do that. Very terrible idea. So best thing you can do is use the tactics or the strategies that were talked about. Sit down with your boss, explain, hey, here's why I feel like I deserve to be at a higher compensation. And another thing you can do is ask about career path, right? And say, hey, if you're a senior accountant, ask your boss, hey, what would it take for me to become an accounting supervisor? can you provide me with a career path or a plan to become an accounting manager? And work together with your boss to be able to have that career path, areas where you can develop, and as well with that ask for a market-based compensation increase.
Right. That's
I wish I had
good
more time
advice.
to talk about that. Good topic.
I know, we're running out of time. And the other thing I would suggest is asking for a stretch assignment, which also may help for you to prove yourself in giving you support for asking for an adjustment in base comp. So, okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Margaret, our host. This was great. We have so many questions we didn't even get to. I apologize to the audience.
Thank you, Terry. At this time, I'd like to thank our presenter, Gene Kim, for sharing his knowledge and expertise with us. We're very appreciative that he has made time for IMA and for our audience today. And also, thank you, Terry Mormile, for moderating today's event. I want to again thank all of you for your participation in today's event, your commitment to IMA, and your professional development through IMA's Insight Talk Career Connection webinar series. I look forward to spending time with you again soon when we'll enjoy some more valuable and interesting information through the Career Connection webinars.